Hello and welcome to the Outcast, the something something podcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is,
Wolf.
and today, oh, this is going to be so much fun for me because today, after 4 years of podcasting, I finally convinced Wolf that today we are going to dedicate a podcast to none other than the Blue Blood, the fastest thing alive, and arguably the best character we created as human beings. I am completely not subjective
Mm-hmm.
because today we are talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie. And if you've been following the Outcast or our podcast in general, you probably know that I've made a short episode about the first trailer for this movie featuring the god awful design, which I will refer to as the love child of King Kong and Houston Bolt. And you're wondering why did it take so long? Because the movie has been out for a while. It's coming out on Blu-ray relatively soon. Like, what's the holdup? Well, I was actually considering doing an episode by myself on this as soon as I saw the movie, but I got held back with a few stuff. And since I knew Wolf didn't see it and Raj didn't see it, I didn't want to do this by myself because I didn't want this to be one guy just basically either fanboying or fan nitpicking and stuff. So I just it's probably gonna be good to have someone doesn't who is not a Sonic fan with me, just to balance it out. And today I have Wolf with me, who before we start talking about the movie itself, Wolf, what is your experience with Sonic the Hedgehog?
First off, totally, HC totally did not threaten my life in order to get me here. Definitely didn't do that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely here of my
Hey,
own free will.
hey, hey,
Help
hey, hey, hey,
me.
Wolf's father accidentally fell on my knife.
Mm-hmm. um, my experience with Sonic is I've played some of the older games and I've seen a little bit of which show was it? It was I think it's called Sonic X.
If it's the anime one, it's Sonic X.
I think it's the anime one. It's the one. Let me see.
Give me something that happens in it.
Oh, I'm trying to think. It has. Yep. Okay, I've seen a little bit of Sonic X. It's got that kid with the red shirt and the weird
Yeah,
pointy
fuck
hairdo.
that kid, by the way. Fuck that kid.
I've seen a few episodes of that. But other than that, I wouldn't really consider myself a fan of Sonic. I just, I know what he is, I know who he is, and I've played some of his games and I've enjoyed them, and that's about it.
Yeah, and then you met me, and you're traumatized for life.
Mm. I grew to hate Sonic. I met you and I grew to hate
Ah,
Sonic. Interesting that one.
yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, again, I know a lot of the meme culture, I guess, with Sonic 2, but who doesn't really?
Yeah, that Twitter account is doing a good job to say what you want.
This is
Uh,
true.
but yeah, so as people probably figured out from this introduction, I am the bigger Sonic fan out of the both of us.
Hmm.
Out of the both of us, like I love Sonic. He's been my favorite character since I was 4. I played most of the games, and by most I mean the ones that were on a console I had at home. So but it comes down to obviously the classics and the adventure games, and the heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog with all the sadness of the matter, '06 with all the sadness that's within the matter as well. Unleashed I love, Colors is also good, Generations is amazing, Lost World, eh, Forces, everything else it depends on if it was on a console I had or own, and stuff. But I also watched all the shows. I did what I read some of the comics. I'm kind of on and off with, but yeah, I'm a big Sonic fan, and I would say that I went into this movie when it was announced before the design, before anything. I was really skeptical about this because I didn't get the idea of doing a live action CG movie. And as the years went by and we saw the design and everything, you can bet I wasn't that excited as well. But something happened with the second trailer that kind of told me, okay, maybe I can have fun with this. I can try and go into this with an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
And now the movie is out. We've seen it. We're gonna talk about it. So starting with non-spoiler views because the movie is still relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
So Wolf, what are your thoughts?
Non-spoiler thoughts.
Mhm.
No. I didn't hate it. I don't think I necessarily loved it, but I definitely didn't hate it. Like I don't think I wasted my time with this movie. I think
Mhm.
as a non-Sonic fan coming into this, I think some of the people who I've heard talk about this movie and say it's the best video game movie of all time, I think that kind of skewed my perspective a little bit because I feel like I came into this movie expecting a bit more, and what I got out of it wasn't quite that, right? I
Mhm.
think saying this is the best video game movie of all time, as much of a low hurdle as that is to jump over, I think I don't think that's completely true. I don't necessarily think it's the best video game movie of all time, but maybe it is from a fan perspective, right? I guess you kind of have to, how do you judge the best video game movie of all time? Is it something that's very faithful, or is it something that tries to do its own thing and does it extremely well with video game characters, right?
The most comparisons I've seen are to Detective Pikachu, and I and
I've not seen that one either.
mhm. But as someone who's seen both, I would say that I would tell you that I enjoyed the Sonic more, but at the same time, I also know that it's probably has something to do with the fact that I always gravitated more towards Sonic rather than Pokemon. So,
Which is fair.
not that Detective Pikachu is a bad movie by any
Oh
means.
no,
It's a
that's fair.
fun movie,
I get you. Again,
but
I've not seen it, so I
because
can't really say.
mhm. because they're also kind of in the same genre in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
so it makes and also they came out relatively close to one another, so it's only fair to assume,
Mm-hmm.
but that comparisons are done. But I get what you mean. People who are calling it the best video game movie, whether if you agree with it or not, when you say of something it's the best, you probably set expectations really high. But at the same time, you need to understand video game movies don't have that high a bar.
Yep,
Like,
it's definitely not a high hurdle to jump over. That's for sure. Your competition. I mean, again, you're in the same field of competition as the Mario movie. Definitely not
that
a
movie is
hard
done.
thing to beat. And I
Yeah.
love that
Uh,
movie, but that movie I love it for all of the wrong reasons.
yeah, the
Because that
Mario
movie is
movie, the
good
Street
for all of the wrong reasons.
and also Street Fighter.
Yep.
These are some of those movies that they're terrible, but you love them because they are terrible.
Yeah. Like they're good for all of the wrong reasons. So I mean, again, your competition isn't exactly fierce. So
Yep.
I do think that skewed my perspective a slight bit because I expected to come into it. Again, I think I did come into it expecting more than maybe what I should have. So trying to look at it as objectively as I possibly can, I don't think. Again, I don't. I definitely did not hate it. I don't think I would go out and watch the movie a second time, but I did enjoy. I did for the most part enjoy my time with it,
Well,
and it did get a few
now
laughs out of me, though probably not for the reasons you think.
mhm. We'll get into this soon, but so I'll say that let's I guess there's no choice. There are two ways for me to look at this. In terms of a Sonic fan, I love this movie.
Hmm.
Like this is this is probably the best you could have done for a first attempt. Like this is like I, because I went into this movie thinking what really matters to me is that they'll get Sonic right and they'll get robotic right. These two things were nailed, if you ask me.
Really?
Mhm.
We might have a disagreement later.
Okay.
We'll see.
But we'll see. But I came in wanting Sonic to be great. I went into expecting Robotnik to be great. This is what I got. So those two things could, like I said to anyone before this, the movie could literally live and die by those two things. And to me, they did both extremely well. Now, the other stuff, I enjoyed the humor. The humor did get a laugh out of me. I enjoyed some of the side characters that were created for the movie. I enjoyed the action. The action is, and but I will say this is definitely a very, very safe movie. Like, this is
Hmm.
not going to necessarily surprise you. It's one of those movies that is kind of built on cliches in a sense, and you can kind of figure out where the story is going. But at the same time, I would argue this is not one of those movies that's made to surprise you. It's a movie
No.
that that exists for you to have fun with. And we've seen tons of other. The reason we got together is because of How to Train Your Dragon, a movie that you can also say is safe, but it's done very well. Now, objectively speaking, How to Train Your Dragon is a much better movie, right? But what I'm saying is that I don't necessarily need a movie to reinvent the wheel in
Not
order to
always.
be
No.
great.
No. Definitely
So,
not
and I
always.
think, for the stories they told and the stories they presented, I had a ton of fun with it.
Hmm.
So, as both a fan as just a casual viewer that's looking for a good time. So, to me, I really enjoyed it. And also, as a fan, I would like to point out that I like the fact that there are references to the games and plenty of. Like, if you're a fan, I'll try and point out as much as I can when we get to spoilers. But what I do like is that none of the references feel too in your face about it. Like, it feels, because like I will feel, as someone who doesn't really know Sonic, did anything feel like out of place for you? Like, this might have been a reference that I just shoved in there.
The name of the town I definitely kind of figured is a reference. Green Hills on Earth.
That's Green Hill,
Green
Green
Hill
Hills.
Zone from the first game,
That
or from all the
the
games, really.
it's the first level of Sonic 1.
Hmm. So it's like that reference I definitely caught. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have to, I guess, are we going to move into spoilers, or do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Um, I don't know. Do you have anything else non-spoilery to say? Because if we are gonna move to spoilers, my 2 cents are: I really enjoyed this movie. If you're a Sonic fan, you've probably seen this, so you probably know what you think and what you think and what you like or don't like. And yeah, that's all I have to say in terms of non-spoilers.
I guess if you want my, final review, non-spoiler thoughts, as a non-Sonic fan, if you're interested in this, I would say give it a watch. You could do much, much worse with your time. I don't think you'll come away with a newfound respect for Sonic from this. Maybe it'll get you interested in the games if you've never played them. Don't play
Actually,
all
that's
of
something
them.
I will add. There's something I will add. If you haven't heard of Sonic before, this I would argue is a good jumping point. Like, this could,
I would
if
agree.
you
I think it'll
want.
kind of get you interested into the character. He's a little bit less annoying than what the movie portrays him as somewhat.
Oh, that's interesting you say, because a lot of people think he's less annoying in the movie.
Really.
Mhm.
Maybe, again, I've not played a lot of the games. The only Sonic games I've really played are the ones where he doesn't speak. So
Yeah.
that
Well,
might have something to do with that.
honestly, I'm probably not. Again, I'm not the most objective, but I never found Sonic obnoxiously annoying. At least not that it wasn't the intent. Because
Hmm.
he's supposed to be a sarcastic asshole.
Yeah.
So
From what I've seen of the
I'm not.
games, I guess it's not spoiler to say like Sonic talks a lot in this one. Like they even point out in the movie and make the joke that he never shuts up, and he doesn't, and it's just on and on and on and on. It's just
I will
barrages you.
say, I will say that in this movie he does speak more than he speaks in the games.
Hmm.
But again, not to give anything away, but it kind of fits with the plot and what's been going on with him that
It
he never
does.
shuts up.
It does. And I do get that, but it feels like a little bit much to me. Where my experience with him from the games, from what I've seen, where he does talk, is he's a little bit quieter. He doesn't talk that much, but he is, the sarcastic asshole more often than not. But he's just doesn't talk that much. So that was a bit of a hurdle to get over and kind of, okay, I know what you're doing, I get what you're doing, but it is a bit much, right? But
Uh,
again, though, even as a non-Sonic fan, I think if you're interested in this movie and you've not seen it yet, go give it a watch. You could definitely do much, much worse with your time. Again, you could do better with your time as well, but you're not going to come into this feeling like, well, that was an entire waste of an hour and a half, and then I'll
yeah.
never get back.
You can
You're not going to
you
feel
can
that
tell
way.
that people put effort into it, which is
Mm-hmm.
and it's shown that people had fun making it.
Mm-hmm. Completely
So
agree.
spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay, so spoilers
Let's
in
start off.
three.
I have one question. Oh, go ahead. Do your spoiler warning. Spoiler
Yeah,
warning, and
spoilers in three, two, one. You're still here. Good. What did you want to add?
is the owl a thing in Sonic?
No, the owl is not. Long claw is not a thing in
Okay.
this.
So
This is a movie thing.
maybe this will set a terrible tone for me going forward in this review.
No, by all means, ask me. What? Like, I'm not
Is
gonna.
it like I saw Longclaw and it's like my first thought was, we get to see Longclaw for about not even 5 minutes, and it's like, huh, that would actually be kind of an interesting story to tell. This, owl raising Sonic apparently and trying to keep him safe, and these other,
The
hedgehog
echidnas.
creatures, echidnas,
No,
yeah,
these are echidnas. These are direct
that
reference
is
to
right, they're
Knuckles.
echidnas, yeah. They're after him apparently because of his power, and the owl is trying to keep him safe. And it's like that would have been a much more interesting story, I feel, than what we got. Personally, it may not have been Sonic, but I think I would have enjoyed it more personally.
You
Mostly
know, this is a.
because the owl reminded me of Guardians of Gahul, and it's like we never got a Guardians of Gahul 2. I kind of
Yeah,
missed that movie. That was
there
a
is
good
something about
movie.
the design.
It
That's yeah.
definitely, like, the moment I saw Longclaw, like, as an owl, it's like I feel very much reminded of Guardians of Gahul, and I'm not sure that's a good thing because now I'm thinking about that. Now I'm wishing we got a sequel, and that was a pretty decent movie, and it looked gorgeous. And now I'm just sad that we never got a second one. Not a great start,
Well,
Sonic movie.
well, honestly, but before that, the one thing I will say about Longclaw is that I kind of get you that it is because and also as a fan, it is kind of interesting to all of a sudden that to see Sonic as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
because in the games and also this movie, they kind of present him. He's always been a teenager. You can argue that in the classics, he's not. He's a kid in his like very early teens, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, and also we don't always, at least in the games, we don't always see him with a family. So it's nice to see that he has some sort of a guardian looking after him. And Baby Sonic is adorable. I love this thing, and and also they do throw onto you the echidnas, which again fans know that there was a tribe of echidnas at one point in the Sonic
Mm-hmm.
Meadows. And all this, and I do agree that the beginning is a bit rushed. That it's all of a sudden, oh Sonic, someone could have seen you. Someone did see him. We need to run away. Oh no, Sonic, you need to go away to another planet. On the one hand, I kind of like this because it gets you into things quickly, which you might expect from this kind of movie. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's a lot to chew in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. I did like the idea of the rings. That's a reference to how you traveled through the old games, is it not? Where you would kind of.
This is a kind of a reference to the special stages in the classic games, like specifically in
Mhm.
Sonic 1, CD, Three Knuckles, 4, and Mania. the giant rings transport you to the special stages.
I like how
So
they
they,
took that and said, "Hey, let's just use this as a means of traveling between worlds." That was actually kind of cool. I enjoyed that. That
yeah,
was a
that was
nice little
cool.
change up.
Mhm. And also something I like is that knowing Sonic as this optimistic, never giving up, free spirit kind of dude. It is interesting to see in this movie that actually his past isn't that happy. Like he
Hmm.
was forced out of his home and basically grew up in isolation for 10 years. That's not an easy thing for a kid to do, and it kind of makes sense, and it is fun, later on when the movie actually starts, to just see how he managed to actually make a life for himself that he can actually enjoy for the most part.
Hmm.
And on that note, I do enjoy Sonic's first appearance in this movie. That we see Tom, the cop character, and that he messes with him with a speed meter, and you just see him like blurry in the background, checking his speed, and actually happy that he's managing to run faster than the previous time. I like this.
Hmm.
I and then the scene with the turtle. That the thing with the turtle is amazing. I
That
love
poor
it. I love
turtle.
the turtle.
That was
And like,
abuse.
no, that's not abuse. He
That
wanted
turtle
to
was
have.
shaking.
No, but did you miss that the turtle actually smiles at the start when they start running? He was
He
shaking
wasn't.
because he accidentally.
He wasn't smiling. That was just the wind pulling back his face. That turtle was abused. That poor turtle. Sonic's Sonic's a stalker too, so Sonic's just terrible all around.
No, well, honestly, he can't. Like you said, he can't really show himself because
Excuses, excuses.
shut up.
But no,
Actually,
like
before we get
we do have
as
Sonic
Sonic
arrive on
though gives
Earth.
exposition, yeah, but when he arrives on Earth, and he kind of gives this exposition that if he's ever discovered, he has a backup planet to go to, which is filled with mushrooms, and we get what I assume is supposed to be a jab at Mario when he goes, "I hate mushrooms."
Possibly.
They wouldn't just pass the movie to give it. This is maybe their jab at Mario,
And we
honestly.
also see that it looks like he's traveled to a few other worlds as well before he arrived to Earth.
No, not necessarily because Longclaw really does lead him to Earth, and he's been there since that day. But I'm assuming because he does mention that she gave him instructions, so maybe it's just a list that she made of like what planets
Possible.
are safe or not.
Possible.
So with all that said, we are introduced. And this is another thing that I'm not sure if they actually took it from the games because Sonic doesn't do this a lot in the games, though he does at some point. And it's that he gives people names based on some sort of traits he notices at them. Like he befriends this little creature that forgot who he is, but he sees he likes chocolate chip ice cream, so he names him Chip. Now in this movie, he watches Tom Rakowski, who's talking to donuts and eats them, so he calls him the Donut Lord.
Hmm.
Or he sees his wife who is doing yoga, and so he calls her Pretzel Lady. I
Hmm.
don't know. I thought it was if it was intended, it's a cool reference.
Yeah, it's a nice little
Good.
thing.
Mhm.
And he calls Crazy Carl Crazy Carl.
No, that's everyone calls him Crazy Carl. This is
Yeah,
just
but
his
he calls him
nickname.
Crazy Carl too, apparently. No
Yeah,
special name
well,
for
it just.
him.
Mhm. This is actually a funny bit where he yells at Sonic, "I know you're out there and that you're real," and he yells at him, "No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I
I'll admit
enjoy."
that got me to laugh. I will admit that got me to chuckle a little bit. But it's not long, we see him travel around the town a little bit and we see him kind of try to experience different things and eventually he sees a baseball game and he plays baseball by himself and he gets upset that he is very much alone because he's
This
surrounded by
scene.
people and he can never talk with them or anything else and so he gets upset and essentially sets off an EMP. And that's what's starts another character coming up a little bit later, but we'll get to it. Go
This
ahead.
is before I do want to talk about the baseball scene because this is one of my favorite scenes. Because we start with something fun and lighthearted that you would expect from a character like Sonic, who's so fast he can literally play all the rules of baseball. He can be all the players because he's
Mhm.
so fast. But then when the fun stops, you realize he is alone. And like when it cuts to that long shot of him just wanting a high five and he's by himself there, that honestly got me. That was like it was so weird that they could actually balance that tone out, but at the same time, I'm used to seeing Sonic as this, carefree adventurer, and all of a sudden I get, what? Maybe before he met Tails and the other guys, maybe he was a bit lonely. Maybe it is something that's bothering him,
Mhm.
and that actually hit me. That was a very interesting take on him.
That's fair. I can definitely see how it would. For me, it didn't hit that hard, and I think it's just because the movie doesn't give me enough time to really feel that from him. Maybe, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just a cold, heartless bastard too. That could also be it. But I can
Option
definitely,
two seems more likely, but
I can definitely see how it would hit some people, especially if you're more of a fan of Sonic. I think it might hit you a little bit harder. But for me, I feel like the movie didn't give me enough time with Sonic and him, being and kind of showing up more of that. Oh, he's with people, but he's not with people, right? Like he is still lonely and he is still very much kind of growing up and still a kid, right? I don't think the movie gave me enough of that to really get into the character and really feel like, okay, this is a sad moment for him. This is something that's absolutely going to make him upset.
well, on that note, like you said, he gets emotional and accidentally causes an EMP, which shuts down the entire power in Green Hills,
What a forced
and
way to introduce Dr. Robotnik, though. Like, this military meeting seems so dumb. I'm gonna be honest. It's like, oh, we should introduce this guy who has nothing to do with anything, and it's like, I don't know, like,
they
it's
do
such
they
a
do kind of.
farce. It makes them feel stupid. It makes, like, the entire. And again, it's like, I
Well,
don't much
well, honest,
care, but it just feels dumb. And
well, honestly,
it made me
honestly,
laugh for all the wrong reasons, I feel.
no,
Maybe that was the
but
intention, I don't know.
at the same time, they do say they are good at figuring out what it wasn't. So when
True.
all you
Again,
get
which
is
also that
when all
also
you,
got me to laugh. I'll admit that got a chuckle out of me.
but there is some kind. I'm not sure if again, not sure if it's intentional, but there is kind of like a cold feeling towards Robotnik
Yeah, oh, there
in
is.
this,
Like they definitely don't like him.
which by the way, I'm probably going to alter between Robotnik and Eggman without noticing, so bear with me on this. But the fact that they're kind of looking at Robotnik with like as crazy and weird, and they're not automatically supporting the idea that he's even bring him on board. So there is probably something there. I'm not sure if they're kind of setting up that in the game's lore, his grandfather used to work for the army, and he was eventually
Oh, did not know that.
executed. He was eventually executed because see Sonic Adventure 2's plot for more details. I'm not going to get into this entire thing here,
Well, I mean, he
but
says in the movie that he was an orphan.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, but yeah, that's also something that because also in the games, Eggman always looked up to his grandfather as a role model, as an inspiration. So them looking at Robotnik like he's not like they don't want this could connect to the idea that his grandfather for them at some point, and how that eventually fits into some things. But that's sequel ideas that we are not going to get into. But just fun thing to point out.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
as we and yep, we are getting to the introduction of Dr. Ivor Robot, played by Jim Carrey, who gave us the good old 90s Jim Carrey trying to be Dr. Robotnik. And if you ask me, this is like the perfect combination of 90s Jim Carrey and Robotnik. Like he
Eh,
gave it he gave it his own spin, which I really appreciate because the character is still written like Robotnik. He still says a few stuff like Robotnik, and I loved it. Every time he's on screen, he's just having so much fun, and you can tell.
I I didn't find him all that funny in this.
Hmm.
For me, I saw him, and we're introduced to him in the first place, and it's like they didn't give you. And my first thought was they definitely didn't give you a lot of direction, did they, Jim Carrey? Because you just came on set and they just said do whatever, and you're just doing whatever. And then we get a scene much later in the movie where he's in his lab doing lab work on one of Sonic's quills, and it's just like he's just
Yeah.
doing whatever the hell he wants to do. You know, that has to be all
That's
acting.
actually that's actually I listened to there's a commentary by the director and Ben Schwartz, the actor who voiced Sonic in this. There's a commentary by them on the iTunes release, and they are actually talking that when Jim Carrey was talking to them about the character, he pretty much insisted that he's getting a dance sequence at some point.
Uh huh.
So
Okay.
yeah, so
So I
so
saw that, and my immediate thought was, I know what this reminds me of now. He's just playing Ace Ventura Pet Detective again.
actually, when he was announcing the role, there was a comic of like a Robotnik dressed in the Ace Ventura clothing, and he's
I
like,
mean,
"I found it. I figured out where all the animals went to. I kidnapped them."
I mean, that's not all that far off at this point because it feels like that's the character he's playing again. It feels like he's just playing Ace Ventura Pet Detective again, just with a little bit of Robotnik sprinkled on top. But it feels like I watched all of this, and it's like, yeah, I'm just watching Ace Ventura Pet Detective again. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm watching you play that character again. I'm not. Maybe it's because I'm not much of a Sonic fan, so I don't know about a lot about
Yeah,
Robotnik.
because I will tell you that I have watched Ace Ventura. Just I watched it a long time ago and once.
Oh, it's been a
So
long time since I've seen it too, and I only saw it once. But or
yeah,
I
but
saw it
the thing, but
maybe a few
at
times,
the
but
same time, I'm one of those people that I've seen Eggman so many times in games and other cartoons and stuff. So maybe that's why I'm able to see it a bit more. But I don't know, maybe.
it always felt to me, maybe I'm wrong on this, but it always felt to me like, at least in the games or the lore of Sonic, how much that
Yeah.
matters, that Eggman was the straight man to everyone else's kind of out there zaniness. Wrong or right?
Um,
Agree or disagree?
I would disagree, and I would actually say, in terms of all the personalities, Sonic is more of the straight man.
Hmm.
Because Robotnik always has this, I'm a genius extreme. He's always proud of his intellect. He's always proud of his achievements, even though he doesn't necessarily have anything to be proud about. And you can argue that Sonic, the exaggerated free adventurer that does whatever the hell he wants, but at the same time, he's not. He always struck me as the straight man to everyone else's shtick. Tails
Mm-hmm.
is the kid. Knuckles is the gullible naive. Amy just wants to date him. So among all of those personalities, he's the one that you can point out and say, I'm probably the most like this. So Robotnik never really struck me as the straight person, as the straight man out of this group of characters.
Okay, maybe it's just me reading the character wrong then, in which it could be. Again, I'm not a huge fan and I don't know a ton about Robotnik, to be fair. But for me, it just felt, I don't know, again, it felt like I wasn't getting the Robotnik character or, a new character from Jim Carrey. It felt like I was just getting Jim Carrey playing Ace Ventura Pet Detective again. And while that can be funny, I didn't
don't
find
get
it
me
too
wrong.
funny.
It is. I get where you're coming from. I just think personally for this type of role it works, but
Personally,
that's.
like when I saw Jim Carrey on screen doing the whole Robotnik shtick, I didn't,
Mhm,
or the Ace Ventura Pet Detective disguised as Robotnik shtick, I didn't find him himself all that funny personally. When he's
mhm.
having a back and forth with, I think it's James Marsden's character Tom,
Yeah. Mhm,
that's when I found him funny. When he's having a back and forth with Agent Stone and the actor who plays him, that's when I found it funny. When he's having a back and
mhm,
forth with Sonic, that's when I found it funny.
mhm.
Otherwise,
Like
I
when he's
him
by
by himself,
himself.
I didn't find it as
Okay.
funny. Yeah,
Mhm.
personally, that's just me personally though.
Okay, but going back to the movie for a second, the one thing that I do like is that a bit after we're introduced to Robotnik, there is the scene where he's analyzing Sonic's footprint, and I like how he's actually approaching this from like that he can kind of figure out, this, there was no attack, there was no anything, there's something else entirely here. I
Mm-hmm.
I like that, while Robotnik is a goofball, he is still really smart, and
Yeah.
it's nice to see that he can actually figure this type of things out with this technology.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And then we get the arm of Sonic, so he decides to bail, and this leads him to Tom's garage, where we get the now infamous meme of meow.
Yep.
Hmm.
That's all I can say. That. Yep.
Hon- Honestly, in itself, maybe it's also the better design, but this got me to chuckle a bit. That this is his first reaction to seeing a human. That, yeah, this is gonna work.
Agreed. Like it definitely it got me to laugh a little bit, I guess. And then we have Tom shoot him with the tranquilizer gun, and he loses his, and he drops a ring. It opens up in San Francisco, and he loses the rest of his rings on a
This
building
is
in San Fran.
probably another reference. San Francisco is kind of a famous landmark in the Sonic Meadows, because one of the levels in the first level in Sonic Adventure 2, Cityscape, is literally based on San Francisco, because that's where the Sega of America headquarters were located at the time.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I'm assuming this is why they put them in San Francisco at some point, because people love that level, and
Mm-hmm.
rightfully so. It's a great level. So there's that. But yeah, so Sonic and Tom made up. And Tom protects him from Robotnik
And he
until
punches Robotnik in the face, which is
Mhm.
funny. And
Yeah,
again, like
that's
you just
true.
have the entire back and forth between Tom and Robotnik. And you do have Robotnik doing the shtick of I'm smarter than everyone else. Everyone else is a monkey compared to me, and
Mhm.
he thinks he can get one over on the country bumpkin hillbilly cop, and Tom's actually a little bit smarter than that. And I
Mhm.
like their back and forth there. That actually got me to chuckle a little bit. Like it was actually a
Yeah.
good back and forth.
Yeah, that's another thing I like about that. Even though he's not Robotnik's level of intelligence, he does have a brain, and he does have a character, as opposed to
I guess
another
you'd say
kid
it's the
from.
whole street smarts versus book smarts, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the difference between the two.
Yeah,
And he
basically.
uses his kind of street smarts to outsmart him a little bit here and there, and do better
Mhm.
than him at some things.
Yep.
And I did enjoy Jim Carrey's reaction to seeing Sonic 2. That was actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, honestly, if
Just
you
the
saw this
scream,
kind
and
of
then
thing.
again Tom punches him. That got me to
Yeah.
laugh. I will admit that was good.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
Agent Stone and the rest come in, and they come in to check on Robotnik, and Robotnik says, gives Agent Stone grief again, like you didn't think to go after them, and he's like, well,
Hmm.
no, I didn't, and then he just grabs
By the
him.
way, Agent Stone is probably my favorite of the new movie characters. He's such a sweetheart,
Mm-hmm.
and the actor playing him is also like the nicest. Like, you see his tweets, he's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
But 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 yeah, so and then the chase kind of begins. Tom drops Sonic off and tells them how to get to San Francisco. But the thing is, Sonic doesn't know how to get there. And after after crashing into the Pacific Ocean, he
Another
got
joke that got me to laugh a little bit, I'll admit. The running back and just being angry, and then, again, I'll admit that got me a little bit. I actually laughed at that one a little bit. That was funny. Just running all the way to the Pacific Ocean, falling into it, and then running back. That was funny. I enjoyed that.
which kind of contradicts the idea that he can run on water. But oh
Mm-hmm.
well. But maybe he got panicked by the water. Sonic doesn't like water, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he comes back to Tom, and Tom agrees to take him to San Francisco, which starts our road trip part of the movie, and then they stop at this, kind of a diner,
Mm-hmm.
and actually one of my favorite Sonic in the movie comes at that diner where the waitress says that kids aren't allowed, and he's like, oh, he has like a rare skin disease that makes it. And Sonic goes, the face I was born with, the confidence I picked up along the way. That's a great one.
Yeah, that one
And
got me. That was also a good line. I agree.
and I shall definitely use it at some point in my life. I don't
Don't
know
do
when.
that. Don't use that. I don't recommend it.
Okay, fair. But yeah, and then they just start having fun at the bar, which some parts, like I enjoyed the part where he throws Sonic as a ball into the basketball, and Sonic just uses his legs to quickly score hits.
Mm-hmm.
I found that funny. And then of course we get, and also bar fight, we get the not Quicksilver scene, but
Yeah,
I still.
explain that to me because it's just so random. It feels like, oh, Sonic's moving faster than everything else, but he's not, moving so fast that time freezes. And it's like in this one scene, everything freezes, and that's just
It,
like,
it,
it's
it
like,
does
oh,
come
that's
back
how
later.
fast. But it doesn't though, because they even show in the later scene that stuff is still moving. But in this one scene, nothing's moving. Nothing is moving. That's just how fast
I,
Sonic moves.
I think
It's
the
like,
idea is
that's
that
not what you
stuff.
set up before. I
Mhm.
see you, movie. You're
Like,
being inconsistent. I'm gonna call you out on it.
okay, that's fair, because but I
I'm
think
gonna
the idea is
nitpick.
that it's not the idea that necessarily everything is done just stops moving, but that everything just moves so slow in comparison. But I get it that it's a bit inconsistent. That in the bar it looks like everything freezes, and in that and in the
I mean,
later
it looks like
scene.
everything freezes because everything is frozen because it's just an image that's being manipulated digitally with Sonic being superimposed on it.
Mhm.
Like, let's be
Yeah.
honest, that's why it looks that way because, we need to get out a little bit cheaper, so let's do it that way. So I get why they did it, but it's just,
But at the same time, say what you want about it. This is a cool. I
yeah,
enjoy that
it's
moment.
funny, it works, it's a good scene, and I like what they're doing
Yeah.
with it, but
I
it's
also like how much he takes pride of the fact that that he used all the toilet paper, and the next person going into the bathroom is gonna have nothing. I don't know. I found it's a bit juvenile humor, but
again, he is still they do set him up as still, very much a young, teenager, young kid, young teenager in that area, right? So it makes sense
yeah.
that, he would be excited by some of these things. Because another scene we get is him and
Also yeah. I see you giving Sonic the opportunity to eat a chili dog. Well
mm-hmm,
played. To those who
mm-hmm.
don't know, Sonic's favorite food is chili dogs. So
But yeah, it does speak to, again, him being a kid, younger teenager, and because the next scene we see him in is him and Tom in a rest stop taking a nap, and Tom says, I'm gonna lay down and go to bed. I'm tired, want to take a rest, and Sonic's like, no, we gotta do all this other stuff, and he's like, anything you can find to do in this room, and he does a ton of stuff in the room very quickly using his ability of speed and all that,
by the
and then
way,
he's
one of the things he does is that he's actually the I'm about to fall off the edge animation from the games.
mm, I did not pick up on that one, I'll admit.
Yeah, it's hard to pick up, and you kind of need to. It, if you ever see the scene again, doubt it, but still, it's like on the top left corner of the screen.
I'll have to look out for it. But yeah, yeah, and then immediately after that, Tom's like, "All right, let's hit the hay and go to bed and get some rest." And Sonic's like, "I'm not sleepy," and then immediately falls asleep. The whole
Yeah.
young kid thing. I'm not sleepy at all, and they immediately fall asleep afterwards because they were definitely tired and fell asleep. So again, it's you can definitely see they're
And
trying to
then the
play up
next
that idea of him being very young still.
and like the next morning for them, we get Robotnik actually trying to kill them, which is a cool action scene.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. That was fun, and you kind of get to see
I like
everyone
how
do their thing.
I like typical Robotnik. Whenever destroy something, like a smaller robot ends up coming out. It's like
Hmm.
this thing is so relentless to try and kill them, and it is kind of funny to see Robotnik just be losing his confidence in a sense, because at the start he's like, yeah, you been in this part, didn't really matter. I'm sorry, some guy with a motorcycle just decided to race towards him. I don't know why, but so
Trying to
he
catch
has this,
Sonic.
probably. Good luck with that. But so we get Robotnik being like, "Yeah, thank you for asking, but I can still catch you." But then it just grows into frustration when they just manage to beat it more and more and more, and then also there's the point where Tom lets Sonic take the wheel for whatever reason, and he tells them, "Where did you learn how to drive?" And tells them with the instruction manual, right here. It's happening as we.
Yeah, that was funny too. I enjoyed that. That was a good line.
and uh, and eventually we get the bomb being stuck to them, which ends up blowing up and leaves Sonic unconscious.
And that's when we
And
get to San Francisco where we meet Tom's wife again, and it's like, they have to, and she's a veterinarian. It's something that was introduced much earlier on in the movie, and like, can you fix
yeah.
Sonic? Can you work on Sonic? Do these things.
By the way, I love Tom's sister-in-law. She's she's mostly because she's so like, I love how they just tied her up to a chair and her daughter doesn't give a
Yeah, that
damn.
was funny. And I'll admit, we have a scene there as well of her daughter giving Sonic his, iconic
Yeah, the trademark
shoes.
shoes.
That
Yes.
was sweet. I enjoyed that. That was nice. That was a great little way to do that, I feel. His first
By
ever
the way,
gift
another
from a person.
by the way, another reference there when Maddie uses the salting to wake Sonic up. The first thing he says is "gotta go fast," which is
Yeah.
referencing that old meme, which is
Mm-hmm.
also which was born from the English theme song for Sonic X.
Yep.
But to be honest, if they had to put this meme in there, this was a good way to do it, because it can't. Because the fact that this is the first thing he says after being woken up, so I accept that. This was good on you writers, and then I also like that Maddie is a bit like you need to give me some respect that I'm totally calm. I'm not questioning anything. But what is this? What is going on? Give me
Also, I want to point
answers.
out, during this entire time, Tom has been labeled a terrorist and everything, right? And it's just
Yeah.
weird that he's traveling around all these different places after being labeled a terrorist. And just,
Well, he doesn't really have much of a choice.
no, but he's
So
able to
he.
calmly get away with a lot of this after being labeled a terrorist. It's just so weird. It's just so weird how they kind of portray certain
Yeah.
things in this kind of like fantasy kind of realm thing, but it's also, we're definitely set in real world America, right? And it's like, it's this kind of odd disconnect. I don't know. It's just
Okay,
this
that's
weird, odd disconnect for me.
that's fair.
Because we get some of
Yeah.
these, it's like, oh, Sonic referenced Amazon. Ugh. And by the way, I want to point out, I expected to do a lot more of, oh, God, they referenced that. Why? A lot in this movie. I expected I might
Yeah.
be doing that. I didn't because they actually didn't make that many cringy references. So I have to
Oh.
give them credit, I feel. Like,
Okay.
their references were either, they only had very few or they were fairly well done and kind of hidden in the background and only things that mostly as you've pointed out already, very big fans would point out for the Sonic references, but like your general like Sonic reference in Amazon, and he references something else too that I forget what it is. It's just kind of this thing in regular America in the regular world, right? It
Mhm.
just things like that just make me go, oh God, please. But they didn't do that a lot, so credit to them on that. I expected to go, oh
Mhm.
God, a lot, but I didn't have to. So credit where
Okay.
credit is due. I
That's
feel
cool.
because a lot of these kind of mascot movies like this are heavily reverential because they don't know what else to do to be funny. Like
Mhm.
AKA see the Woody the Woodpecker movie.
I am not touching that. I never
That
liked Woody Woodpecker in general, so
or
no thank
see
you.
any other like CGI, live action mascot movie. Generally the CGI mascot is very referential. Like go look at the old Scooby Doo movies, the live action ones.
Yes.
Yikes. Those were not good because they were
But
so
I love them for
referential.
that.
I do too, but again, love them for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I
I
said.
would
I love them.
actually say that the Sonic movie is better than those.
Mhm.
I would also definitely say the Sonic movie is better than the Woody the Woodpecker movie. That's not a high bar to jump over, but still yet, credit where credit is due. It's better than the Woody the Woodpecker movie. If you have a choice, just watch the Sonic movie.
There you go. Let's end it on that. I don't.
That's not high praise, but it's praise nonetheless.
Mhm. So after Sonic wakes up and everything, we need to get him to, to,
Oh, I forget the name
you
of the
know,
building. It's a famous building in San Francisco, though.
yeah, the San Francisco building,
But before we
basically.
get to that, I want to go back because while they're doing the thing with Sonic and having their back and forth, which is enjoyable, I like the back and forth between Tom and his wife. I think that was as small as it is. It was done very well, right? I enjoyed that, and with his sister-in-law as well. All the back and forth there was actually fairly funny. I enjoyed a lot of that. The Dr. Robotnik experimenting on one of Sonic's quills scene.
Mhm.
All of the dance stuff, I didn't too much care for, but when Agent Stone kind of shows up out of nowhere holding two lattes, that made me laugh because you just get his scream, and then he's like, "Yes, I would want a latte. I enjoy the way you make them." I kind of like the back and forth between Dr. Robotnik and Agent Stone. Really,
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
there's this kind of like, I hate you, but I don't really hate you. I actually do kind of like you a little bit, Like there is
Mhm.
kind of a mutual respect sort of deal there, somewhat. I guess I don't
Yes.
know. It's just this. It's a fun love hate relationship, kind of. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree.
So again, it kind of goes back
So,
to that. I find Robotnik funnier when he's with other people, having a back and forth with them, than I do by himself, kind of.
mhm.
But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I can see why you would feel that. So with that said, kind of moving on
Mhm.
to you know, eh, so they take Sonic to that tower. I forgot the name.
Yeah,
Sorry
I
for the
don't remember the name. It's a
sorry for the
famous
provision
building in
in
San
San Francisco.
Francisco, though.
Yeah, and they get him up, which honestly, the scene in the elevator is both funny, but at the same time, like I like the idea that they think he has a child in there, but I laughed when Tom asked like he likes it there, don't you, buddy? And Sonic is like, why would I like it in here? This is worse than the cage from before. I
Hmm.
don't know. This
That
this
was
made me
funny.
laugh.
That was definitely a funny scene because I enjoyed that too very much. So just the and the two other people kind of backing away slowly and just kind of okay.
Mhm. But then they get to the roof. Sonic is about to leave Earth, but then Robotnik strikes in a more fitting outfit for him. And
Hmm.
this brings us to my favorite exchange in the movie, which is when Sonic tells him your flying eggs are pretty impressive, Mr. Eggman, but let's face it, you'll never catch me. and Robotnik goes, confidence, a full substitute for intelligence. These two lines capture the rivalry of these two so well, because at the end of the day, Sonic and Eggman's arch rivalness comes down to a battle of egos. Only like one is just overconfident about his skills and the other is overconfident about his brains. And these two lines kind of set it up so well with so little, and I love that.
Agreed.
So this
And
is
I
probably my
also
friend.
loved how, all the guns get trained on them, and, you have Tom and his wife back there like, hey, buddy, you have the super speed, but you don't. Yeah. So he just pushes them off, and Eggman's like, I did not expect that. But I came expecting to be, surprised, to expect the
Yeah,
unexpected,
so it
so
doesn't count.
so it doesn't,
Whatever.
yeah. Yeah, I like that. I enjoyed that. That was funny.
And then Sonic tries to slow down time again, only for now Robotnik's ship is powered up by his quill, and so
He can
it
keep
has
up
no
with him.
effect. Yeah, so Robotnik now can keep up with Sonic, which is a new concept for him in this because nobody is caught up before, which again is interesting. And it's also nice to see them kind of why Robotnik's machines can actually outrun Sonic sometimes.
Yeah, it's
So
a nice little nod to kind of story explanation. And then after that, we see kind of a chase through different, world wonder landmarks. Like we see, because Sonic grabs his rings, he saves Tom and his wife. They get thrown back to Green
to Green
Hills,
Hills.
which is a little bit funny because you just see them thrown through the ring at the speed they were falling at, and they just hit that hay bale. That was a
Yeah.
little bit funny, and you just kind of see them laying there. Like, just give us a minute, please. That
Yeah,
got me
we
to laugh a
need
little
to.
bit.
And then, but Sonic and Robotnik's chase through the wall. This is there is a small bit there where Sonic is like striking a pose that is his Super Smash Bros. Ultimate artwork.
Did not notice that one either.
Oh, really? Like it's literally in your face.
That one, again, I'm not a huge fan of Super Smash Brothers either. I just play the game every now
Oh,
and
okay.
again, so that's probably why I didn't
So
notice that
like
one.
his Smash Ultimate pose is being thrown in there, and the
Neat.
way he slides on the truck, this is also like his actual sliding animation from the games. And the idea of them traveling through the world is, I assume, is a reference to Sonic Unleashed, which the game is basically a world, going through the world, and there's even a scene in that game where running across the Great Wall of China, which is something they do here as part of the chase scene. So kudos to them for actually, doing this. I'm still one of those people that will defend Unleashed to the grave, so I enjoy seeing this reference.
Judge him for that
And
how you
then
will, ladies and gentlemen.
what?
Like I said, judge you for defending Sonic Unleashed as they will.
A lot of people defend English these days. Like this is one of the most highly requested to get a PC port.
Do they
So
though?
yeah,
Do
yeah.
they?
So a lot of people are on my side. Let's say
Are
this.
they? Are
Yes, they
they?
are. Yes, they are. Shut up. People who don't like Unleashed and the people who don't like Unleashed can honestly suck it. But that's another story. Going back to the movie, Robotnik does end up getting a shot at Sonic, and as he's about to return to Green Hills, and people think Sonic is dead, even though he's not, because he's Sonic the damn Hedgehog. But you know, we get that little Tom standing up to Robotnik and calling Sonic his friend, which is what sets Sonic up. With the lightning powers again. Which, by the way, I will say the lightning attached to him is
Is that
not
a new
something
thing?
from
Okay, so that's a new thing.
that's not from the games. And again, bringing up the commentary again, the director kind of says that that him having lightning form the final battle is kind of supposed to reference Supersonic, which is not in this movie. But I think this is more akin of the light speed attack from Adventure 1 and 2 and Heroes, but that's just my interpretation.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah, now having friends, Sonic, kind of starts being who he is in the games, and he's no longer running from confrontation. He's using his power to fight back. and
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoy how you see just how fast he is, but with how many hits he's able to land on Robotnik, so quickly. Um, and then with Tom, he sends Robotnik to the Mushroom Planet, where he's supposedly stuck forever.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonic gets his I-5, which is a wholesome moment, and yeah, basically Tom and Maddie invite him to live with them, and
In
movie
their
over,
attic,
happy ending.
and that's his new
Yeah.
cave, quote unquote. And I think that
Mhm.
was, very much an awe moment too from me. Kind of like, oh, okay, that's a little bit sweet. He's kind of they're raising him now, quote unquote. That's nice. I get that. I
Mhm.
see that. That's a little nice
Which
thing.
I also kind of enjoy.
You managed to
A lot
melt
of
my
the
heart just a little bit, Sonic movie. My old cold heart, my old cold heartless bastard heart. You managed to melt it ever so slightly with that one. I'll admit it, Sonic movie.
Mhm. One more thing to note about is that I actually enjoy that Tom and Maddie didn't have like this plot of, oh, are we ready to have a kid, and Sonic is like metaphorically that kid. I'm glad we didn't do this
To be
bullshit.
fair, they kind of rushed through a lot of the emotional thing because it's like Tom became attached to Sonic in less than 2 days, and they're friends in less than
Well,
2 days. So
still,
so
I'm glad that it's not.
again,
It
I
wasn't
get
like
you.
a metaphor.
They could have rushed through they could have made that way more than what it probably needed to be. I think the way they did it was fine, right? Kind of moving through it somewhat quickly, right? I
Mhm.
think it works for this movie well enough for what it's trying to do.
Yeah. With that said, we then get like a mid-credit scene with Robotnik now looking a lot more
Mm-hmm.
like his video game counterpart. You know, attempting to go back to Earth because he still has Sonic's quill.
Mm-hmm. And he
So
has
he's
parts of his machine, and he has a new Agent Stone, a literal
yeah,
stone with a
Stone.
face.
I'm kind of willing Stone just so that they could have that one.
Yeah, yeah, they did. They did. But again, like
Yeah.
that was one of the few moments where I felt like Jim Carrey as Robotnik was extremely funny by himself. Like that was that got me to laugh. That was a little bit funny. That
Hmm.
was well done. So maybe that means future movie they'll have him looking more like Robotnik and maybe a little bit more
And speaking of
unique.
future, yeah, and speaking of future movie and other mid-credit scene, we are introduced to Tails.
I missed that one. I didn't look through all of the credits. I
Oh.
kind of skimmed through the credits a
So
bit, so I missed that one.
a bit into there is a scene where where you see Tails, Sonic's best friend, from the games, coming out of a ring and
Hmm.
claiming that if his readings are correct, he found him. He's just hoping he's not too late, and then we see him fly off.
So definitely sequel baiting hard then.
Yeah, but
So
interesting thing about that though. Apparently, I'm sorry if I'm saying her name correctly, but incorrectly. But Colleen O'Shea, I think that's his name. Her name. She's been Tails' voice actress since 2014, and she's actually voicing him in that small scene. So
interesting.
that's cool. But yeah, Tails shows up, which I'm so happy to say got a lot of cheers in when it was in theaters. Like people
Hmm.
really like Tails, and I'm happy. But yeah, we'll see kind of a sequel bait that Tails is going to be in the sequel, and
I mean, it makes sense.
hopeful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of a throwback to Tails' debut was in Sonic 2, so makes sense. But yeah, and that's Sonic the Hedgehog the
Well,
movie.
yeah. Since we're here at the end, let me ask you: do you want a sequel?
I really want a sequel, but I will say that what I said about I can forgive this movie being safe. I want a sequel to do more.
Hmm.
I want a sequel to not just be safe. I want a sequel to do try and push the end a bit.
Are
Obviously
you?
have to.
Would you be worried about the sequel potentially dropping the ball?
Um, Kinda. It's always a thing that you're gonna it's also a thing that you're gonna be afraid of when you are when you're doing a sequel to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I because Sega also kind of has this idea that they can plan for a long run. I will
Mm-hmm.
say this. So, but I'm not sure how much when they had on the movie. So maybe that's up to Paramount and the powers that be to produce it, and Sega is just the copyright person. But you know, uh, what I just don't have enough to go off right now.
That's
But
fair.
what I want to see in a sequel, I want to see a bit more from Sonic's mythology explode. Not necessarily all of it. Like obviously have Tails there, maybe Knuckles. I'm not sure, but maybe start because maybe just start building to the fact that there is more to explore, because apparently in an early draft the Chaos Emeralds were supposed to be a part of this, but then they
Hmm.
decided, you know what, it's a bit too early to introduce this idea.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they could, I want them to take their time, but at the same time, at the next go, maybe try and make it a bit more familiar. Now that you got people interested,
I would
let's really
agree.
push the envelope
I
of what we
think
can do.
as a non-fan coming into this, I think they have a good base here. It's not, a knock you out of the park movie. It's not a great movie. I think it's a
In a
very
sense, some way I'm looking at this. You know how we said about the first season of the Dragon Prince that it's good but nothing special, but it
mm-hmm.
serves such a good purpose as a build-up for the future better seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hope this is the same case.
I would agree. I think I wouldn't say it's on the same level as good as the first season of Dragon Prince, but it's
No,
still,
I'm not. I'm
oh, I
saying
know, I
the
know. I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's as good as that. I think it's very much okay, right? It's nothing perfect. It's nothing great. For me as a non-Sonic fan coming into it, as a Sonic fan, you might think it's way better than that, and that's completely fair too. For me, I think this is still though a good base stepping point, right? Like they can step from here into either more of Sonic, and they can also, they've also, it feels like they have a bit of setup for something a bit more unique with Long Claw. So maybe they can involve a bit more of that and throw a bit more of that in and
Yeah, people
kind of
people are
create a little bit of their
already.
own thing too.
I've seen some theories running around that maybe she's the one that sent Tails to look for Sonic.
Hmm.
So maybe this has something to do with it, and who knows?
I mean, more, Al's being awesome badasses, I'm completely for. So sign me up.
Mhm.
Again, like
Okay.
I would admit I would be after seeing this. If they came out with a sequel, I would definitely be interested in seeing it, and if they can take it further and do more with it, and hopefully it's even better than this one is. Because as I said, I do think they have a good first step, but I would like to, as you said, see them do a bit more and maybe explore a bit more and kind of do a bit more of their own thing while taking more from that that lore and mythos as well, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely the ability and chance here to do more with it, but there is also the big chance that they could definitely screw it up.
Yeah. Everything's possible, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Hmm.
So with
Agreed.
that said, I think that's all. Unless you have anything to add.
Yeah, I would definitely say, as I said earlier, right? If you're interested in this, and if you're curious as a non Sonic fan, go check it out. I definitely think you could do a lot worse with your time. You'll have fun. You might get some laughs out of it. You might even enjoy it even more than I did. So go watch it. Give it a minute. Give it its hour and a half. You'll have fun. It's something to do.
Mhm. So that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie? Did you like it? What would you like to see in a sequel? You can tell us all about this in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is Bearcast Team, on our Twitter, which is Bearcast with a capital B, capital C. And until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf, and, you know, as for a sequel, what I would like to see.
You are the one cutting this off, so you don't really need to patronize me anymore.
I
Come,
was
go
hoping you'd get
on.
upset. Oh well. I don't know what I would like to see. I don't know enough about Sonic, and I'm not going to go there because it would just be memes, and you don't want me directing this movie because I would just do it to make the Sonic fans mad. So
Okay. So yeah, don't let
enough for me.
Wolf Petition, not let Wolf direct the sequel. So
Please
with that,
do.
with all of that said, thank you for listening. Have a great day or night, whatever your time zone is, and take care.
Bye bye.